My dear colleagues, this is Richard Hay. It's Professor Vale, Bates, Sir Berg, Eng, and Professor Jones.
Can we do that again? I forgot your names already.
When we get introduced to a group of people, why do we go around the group reeling off everyone's names? No one can remember all the names, and in the end, we just create a situation where now it's too embarrassing to ask. It's a much better idea to meet one person, get to know them, and then move on to the next person, right? The first time you open Xcode, it can be a bit overwhelming. To help get your head around this huge and complex program, I'm not going to introduce you to everything all at once. I'm just going to introduce you to it a bit at a time, get to know it before moving on to the next bit. While we get to know Xcode, we're going to be building a simple app that just displays some text. Now, we left the previous tutorial on a cliffhanger. Let's hit that create button, and this is what you should see after creating your project. On the left, you have what's known as the Navigator Area. You can select different tabs to open different navigators, but you'll mostly use this one, which is called the Project Navigator, where you can navigate around the files in your project. So this is how a single view application project will be set up initially. You've got source code such as these Swift files, storyboards for laying out scenes in your app, assets for storing any additional resources that your app needs, and this info plist file, which is basically a data file that contains some additional preferences for your project. One thing worth noting, though the Project Navigator looks basically like Finder, they aren't necessarily the same. If you open up this project in the Finder, for example, you'll find that the assets icon is actually a folder containing a subfolder for each resource it contains. The two storyboards are contained in a folder representing the base language of the project. If you add other translations, they'll be stored in another folder. These yellow icons that look like folders are actually called groups. They could be represented by folders on disk, but if they have a little triangle in the corner, such as this products group, they're sort of like a virtual folder, a way of grouping files together in the Project Navigator that isn't represented by a folder on disk. You can create a group with the plus icon at the bottom. The default is for the new group to be synced to a folder on disk, but you can also choose to create a group without a folder. Currently, we have the project selected in the Project Navigator, which brings up the project editor in the editor area, where you can edit any project settings for your project. A lot of these general settings should look familiar. We set them up when we created the project. You'll find some more specialist settings in the other tabs. We'll look at these later. Now, if we select a different item in the Project Navigator, the editor area switches to a more appropriate editor. For example, if we select a Swift file, the source editor opens where we can edit our Swift code. If we select a storyboard, Interface Builder opens where we can edit the app's interface. A new single view app storyboard has two storyboards by default, one for the loading screen or launch screen of the app, and the other is the main storyboard. I've opened up the main storyboard so we can add our text. Feel free to follow along. You should find the main storyboard just contains one scene, which represents one screen or page in your app. Usually storyboards will have more than one scene with navigation between them, but this is a basic starting point. Everything visual in a scene appears in the root view or main view for the scene. Let's add some visual elements to the root view now. Over on the right, you'll find the libraries. We're especially interested in the object library, where we're going to drag out some visual elements onto our scene. You'll find buttons and text fields and switches, but we're going to drag on a couple of labels to display our text. As you drag onto the scene, you'll see some guidelines appear. Use these if possible. They help you to find centers or appropriate distances from margins or other objects. By the way, so you're not confused, if you ever see the object library at the bottom right of Xcode in these tutorials or videos, in Xcode 10, the object library was moved from here to this sort of floating window that we have now. Okay, Feel free to change the text to whatever you like. On the left of Interface Builder, you'll find the document outline. This shows you the hierarchy of all the elements in your storyboard. Already you can see the main scene, the root view, and the two labels we've dragged out. If you want to tweak any of the attributes of any elements in the storyboard, check the inspectors, which you'll find on the right, specifically the Attributes Inspector. For example, I'm going to change the font for these labels to the built-in text style of Title 1. Notice at the top you have attributes related to label. Under the hood, labels are subclasses of views, so below label you'll find attributes for the label that come from the view class, such as background color. Now we've changed the font size, you might need to move it back into position. And that's it. We've set up our first basic app interface. In the next tutorial, we're going to see how this looks in the simulator. If you're interested in going deeper on any of the topics we've looked at in this tutorial, you'll find more information in the book. This has been a sample from my video course, iOS Development with Swift. You can click here to learn more about the course. I've also written a book on iOS development. You can click here to learn more about that. I'm hoping to upload a sample video like this regularly, so if you're interested in iOS development and would like to see more videos like these, you might want to click below to subscribe. Bye!